Oh, on today's WOTWIP and Coffee, and yeah, I do have coffee this morning. I'm actually filming this in the morning. Just plain coffee with creamer. I'm continuing to work on the iris blanket that I had started. And last night we had at Awana, we had our packing party. We had originally figured that we would be able to fill 300 boxes with the different Awana groups and people coming through. We had organized it pretty well, I think. The way that we had it set up is you would get a box and you would form a line across the back of the sanctuary, and on those there were 3 or 4 tables that you were supposed to put one of everything in, like school supplies, frisbee, collapsible cup, silverware, toothbrush, comb, nail clippers, all kinds of things like that. And then you go to the next table, and there were just big, huge bins of rubber ducks, tops, bookmarks, just, quite a few different items you could just put in there, little small items. And then you went down whatever row it was that you had chosen for your box, whether it was a child, male or female, 2 to 4, 5 to 9, and then 10 to 14. We had them set up in the different aisles between the seats. And so then that's where a lot of the wow items were. There were also a lot of things like socks. For girls, there were scrunchies, earrings, necklaces, for the larger girls. Brushes, detangle brushes, and just things like that. And you just picked up a few wow kits. Now, every child got a sewing kit because we had that many sewing kits in their boxes. And then you went up front, and up front there were some small filler items, to fill in some of the gaps that were in the boxes. And they were basically like a little, it's a little box, hinged box you open up. It's got a ladybug in it, and it says, "I love you" on it. And then like crosses, a Bible coloring book, just some little odds and ends like that were up front that you could slip into some of those empty spaces in the boxes. There were very few empty spaces, believe me. A lot of those boxes were overstuffed. And then there was the station where you could stop and write a card to the person who was going to receive the book. The box. Now the children in the Awana group, we had them each color a page so they could add their colored page to their box. Last year we had done it where I, as a group leader, took 5 kids with me picking boxes. The way that we did it this year, we had the youth group help where they each took one child, walked them through wherever their boxes were, whatever box that they had. So they were paired with a youth or an adult so that they could go through, and each person got to do a box. Some of them got to do 2 boxes, and then I had filled 2 boxes going through the line because I didn't have a child with me, so I just grabbed 2 boxes and filled 2 boxes. And then afterwards, when we were finished with Awana, there was still quite a bit left, so I picked up another. See, I went through, I did 6 more boxes, filled 6 more boxes. But then we had an issue. We ran out of labels. So we kind of stopped. They do plan on getting some more labels for tomorrow. Well, I'm filming this Thursday, so this afternoon we're going to go back in with what we have and fill more boxes once we have some labels this afternoon. And then anything left over is going to be boxed up and sent as fillers to the processing center. But we filled 487 boxes last night. So I think we did good. There was a lot of turnout. There were a lot of people that brought in things to donate that evening. So if there were school supplies, we immediately took the school supplies out, placed them with the school supplies. Any other thing we would take and hand those out. Like if there were wow items on there, we would take and put them on the tables that were appropriate. So all in all, it was a good evening. And I think our gal was a little surprised we did so well. Now, one of the fellows and I, we were laughing because he'd counted the boxes, and I asked him, boxes including what the church had turned in. And he told me what the total was. I said, do you think by Sunday we'll meet my goal of 1,000? He goes, I'm hoping so, because that was my goal. I said, yeah, I've been praying for that since July, that we would hit 1,000. And he goes, me too. So we had a good laugh about that, that sometimes you need to not quench the things that are going on. And this is something that the pastor and the person that heads up the Operation Christmas Child Ministry, they're a little hesitant to go big on numbers because they're scared. And we're like, our God's a mighty God, do it. Go for it. The worst that'll happen is you don't meet the goal. You keep that goal for the next year. It's no big deal. So I think he's going to be surprised when he sees the total next week. She won't give the total this Sunday. She'll give it the following Sunday, because we still have through Monday to collect boxes. So we're, and I tell you, it was a lot of work because most of us were there day in, day out for the past week, anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. And of course, prior to that, I am on the Operation Christmas Child Ministry team. For the month before that, we were getting things prepared, opened up, put into different bins, so that when we had our packing party, it would be run a little smoother than it has before. So, and it's what teamwork does. It works well when you work it together and you don't fight. So we had a good time. And 2 of the young ladies were with their mom that were helping. We had a little bit of a break. I was there yesterday afternoon for 2 hours helping to box, count, and box into the larger boxes to be put into the truck for 2 hours. So we were busy doing that. And we had about a 30-minute lull. So I'd come out and sat in front of the fireplace and was crocheting. And one of the gals was like, Mom's teaching us to crochet. What are you making? So I showed her what I was making. And had asked her, if there was something that she wanted to learn to crochet specifically. And she said, well, I don't have any ideas yet. And one of the other gals was sitting there crocheting, and she was making scrunchies. And she, the girl was like, is that how you make the scrunchies? And, yep, that's how you make one of the scrunchies. And so these 2 girls were very excited to get to see somebody sitting and crocheting besides Mom, who's been busy trying to teach them. Now the girls, I've seen them a couple times at the thrift store, and this last time they'd been looking at dresses, and I had asked them, I said, the dresses that you got, are you guys going to leave those alone? Are you going to do something to change them up, to make them, look a little different, upcycle? And so we got a good conversation going, and it was a lot of fun talking with these 2 young ladies. And they're very sweet gals. They're I want to say they're in the 4th grade, I think. So their mom homeschools them. So it was just nice conversation with these folks. And then some of the other folks getting to hear some of the stories that they did as they were younger. Had a husband and wife that the husband we'd been talking about, because they're butchering pigs this weekend, but we've been talking about how they had met, and they talked about how they met, and they were Loganton area, and they talked about their one night that he had the 2 men, their best friends, and what they had done is they had taken their horses and they had rode over the mountain to come down to meet the girls, and they'd camped up there on the mountain. But then when they came back down the mountain, they hit a spot, and it was hot, so they thought they'd cool off, and the horses went into the water area where they were at, and they got stuck, so they had to pull them out. And they said by the time they got through, horses were caked in mud, they were caked in mud. They finished coming into Loganton, and at one of these spots, there was a group of Chinese tourists that had stopped for a picnic, to cool off and rest. And they saw the 2 of them, and so, they were planning on having a little bit of fun, teenagers. So the one guy said, "Just go with me on this, okay?" And he looks at the tourist, and he said, because they did speak English, and he said to him, "What's the date?" And they told him the day, and he said, "No, what's the date?" And so they gave him a date, and he goes, "You mean we've been out here rustling cattle for 3 weeks now?" And then they all wanted pictures with them because they thought they were cowboys. They had a good fun with them. They explained to him that no, that wasn't really what happened. But it was interesting to hear some of those stories from their teen days. And they'd gone down to meet the girls, on horseback. So that was quite funny to hear some of those stories. Okay, I need to pause you for a moment. Had to go see what the cats were caterwauling about. I forgot to open up the blinds so they couldn't see out the window. Crazy cats. So anyway, we have the, as one of my friends calls it, the House of Self-Representatives have passed opened the Epstein files. Then we have the Chuck Schumer asking the Senate to pass it. So I don't know if it's passed or if it's something that'll be done today. And what I find interesting is they're positive they're going to find all kinds of things about Trump in it. Got to remember, they always go back to the thing with the flight records, flight logs. Well, those are public. He flew 7 times from Newark to Palm Beach, or Palm Beach back to Newark, with one stop in D.C. at one point. 7 times, and this was all before 1997. Epstein didn't purchase the island till 1998. There's no evidence that he ever flew to the island, although there's lots of evidence that there's quite a few Democrats, as well as some other Republicans that flew to the island. So there's that question there, what's going on there? And then you have just the craziness that goes on with it. So we'll see what releasing those files actually does, if anything. I think for those people that are yelling for accountability, I agree. And it should be accountability for both sides, regardless. Let the chips fall where they may. And what's with Bill and Hillary refusing to come and testify in one of the Senate hearings? What's that about? You know, people have been jailed for that, refusing. Maybe they're looking for a jail sentence. I don't know. Who knows? But it'll be interesting. See what happens over the next couple of weeks. They are talking about forcing them to come testify. I don't know why they wouldn't. They want to clear their names. What do they have to hide, right? Then we've got quite a few of the Democrat senators that are I'm going to say they're absolutely calling for an insurrection, sedition, something. They're calling for the armed forces to refuse to follow the orders of the commander-in-chief. So they're openly calling for that. You know, supposedly saying it's under the guise of following the Constitution to uphold the Constitution. There hasn't been anything that Trump has done that isn't in the Constitution, within his constitutional rights. Nothing. He's upholding the law. That's his job, to uphold the laws of this land. If you don't like the laws, change them. They could certainly change the laws, allowing anybody and everybody into this country if they wanted to. But they haven't done that, have they? So, I don't know. It's a quandary, isn't it? Oh, goodness. Ronan the other day, I'd gotten a different type of treat, cat treat for the cats. And generally I give them a treat in the evening. You know, 1 or 2 pieces. Well, I had that over here beside me. I have a table beside me. So I had that sitting on the table. Next thing I know, I hear this over here to my right. And I look back there and he's got that bag and he's ripping it open to get the treats. He almost had it open completely. So, I don't know. It was kind of cute to see him doing that. He rarely does that with these bags. So, it was funny to see him trying to do that. Now, he does when I bring in the cat food. And I do get the 18-pound bag once a month for him. And generally, I'll set it over to where it's right next to the containers I put it in until I can get it open and put it into the containers. And he will sit there and stand on it and try to open the bag. But he also gets weird. You know, he runs around the house, runs back and forth, across to the food and back, and sits on it, and then proceeds to try to open the bag. And it's not like they're starved to death. Goodness gracious, they've always got food. Little chunky monkey, Izzy. I've determined there's no way to put her on a diet because Ronan eats more than she does. And if I take away from both of them, you know, just put it down every once in a while, I don't know if that'll work with them. Have to talk with the vet about that. Of course, she got to be a little chunky monkey because, you know, being fixed. That's the worst part about being fixed. You always gain a lot of bit of weight. A lot of bit of weight. is the way my mother used to call it. But, yeah. Cats act funny. I don't know what kind of festivals we have going on in our area this year. I know after Thanksgiving, I think it's the first weekend in December, they have the Chrisitian in Mifflinburg. I believe they're going to have a Christian somewhere near Williamsport too, but I'm not sure when that one is. Which are basically Christmas markets. Now, Thomas and I have always gone in the past to the Christian in Mifflinburg, and it's a really nice setup, but the vendors all seem to be the same. We used to go there. There was one guy that did a lot of carvings, wood carvings, and we would usually choose a bird wood carving for his mother for Christmas. But he quit bringing many of those, and then him and Thomas would, talk about what Thomas thought might be a nice looking wood carving, and would he bring it, to the Christian, set it aside for him. We haven't done that in years. When Thomas got sick, we didn't go at all. But they still kept in touch, that kind of thing. I don't know, because the other ones seem to be mass manufactured items. It used to be they were handcrafted items. Sometimes you do have a couple that are handcrafted, but it's very rare. Mostly they're mass produced. And of course, the one thing that I would always go to is one of the last areas. They have a group of spinners and yarn people, and they used to sell hanks of yarn, beautifully dyed hanks of yarn. They've quit doing that. Now it's just scarves and shawls that they've processed, made on the loom, those kind of things. Which I could care less. I always just wanted to go see the beautiful different yarns and, purchase a couple of hanks of yarn. And the good thing is getting to go and eat the different places. All of the churches in that area, there's 2 or 3 of them that have meals that they serve throughout the entire thing. And they're totally free. It's donation only, which is nice, for those that can't afford it. Of course, they've got a lot of different food vendors at the Christian. It's been fun in the past. I don't know if a couple of us were talking about going, so I don't know if we're going to go or not. And the only thing is to remember not to go the day that they take the high school students there at that time, because it's mass pandemonium with teenagers running up and down, and it's way too crowded on that street to be doing that kind of thing. And the way they have it set up is the school buses run to pick you up and take you to the event from parking, because there's very little parking around that area. You're lucky if you can find a place to park. So they decided to do that to make it easier, which isn't too bad unless you get on the kindergarten bus. It's hard to fit in those seats. They're itty bitty tiny. So, and then of course they have a tip jar so you can leave some money if you'd like to help offset the cost. You don't have to, but it's kind of a nice thing to do. I don't know how the one in Williamsport's going to run. I think it's in Williamsport. Maybe it's not. Have to look and see. So do you guys do anything like that during the Christmas season in December? I know last year we had gone to one craft show in near our area, picked up a few things for Christmas. But usually I've already got my Christmas stuff made, purchased, all that kind of stuff. So that way I don't have to worry about it. The only thing would be last minute things, to consider. I'm just curious if there are certain festivals in your area that happen around Christmas during the month of December. All right, guys, I am going to cut this short. I have a couple of things I need to get done before the day really gets started. So I will see you again tomorrow. Everybody have a blessed day. And remember, do something kind if you can.